I was walking in my neighborhood in the afternoon and the sun was almost all the way down. So most of the street was shaded, and I turned the corner and I see this naked baby, and he's running down the street into this little sliver of light that is still left. And he got to the sliver of light and he's butt naked. And he just stood there, and his mom was like running after him. She was like, "What are you doing?" And she scooped him up, and he was, and then she brought him in the house. And I was like, that is so cute, because of course babies, like, they just don't care. Like, they just don't care. Like, he was butt naked and he just wanted to be in the warmth of the sun. I love being naked in the sun too. It's just like, it's so freeing. And you think about what the sun is, it's like it's shining a light on like your full body. Like, there's no better way to be seen. But anyway, I just thought like it was so funny, and the mom was probably cracking up. But what it like, it reminds me too of like taking off the mask and just like not caring what people think. Like, maybe it is weird to like go out into the sun naked. Like, I was just listening to this podcast, and the guy was talking about how sunning testicles, I'm sorry, stuttering, but they did a study that shone light on men's testicles, and it increased their testosterone levels. So I mean, it just is kind of crazy. It didn't measure like exact testosterone. I think he said it was androgen serum, something like that. But it really is crazy if you think about it. And years ago, like, I was going to the gym, and I was training really, really hard. And then I started to think about things, and I was like, wait, like, I started to think about sunlight and vitamin D and all the other things that the sun can do for us. And I was like, maybe I'm just gonna cut back on being like so strict and like more like in a masculine push action oriented phase, and like let me get into my feminine and like receive the sunlight and get some of the same benefits, if not more. And they were also talking on this podcast of like being in the sun, small amounts of being in the sun over time actually reduces our risk of sun cancer. So, and that's pretty obvious, right? Because, it's UV light, so it is ionizing radiation light. Same thing, ionizing radiation as the phone and the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth and all that. So if we get too much of it, it obviously is a negative thing, but it's kind of like being in the sun could maybe help us to acclimate to all of this energy that we're not used to having around us. So like when we do go into the sun, we are stimulating cortisol. We are doing damage. Just like when we exercise, we're breaking down the muscle. We are, essentially killing cells, and we are creating a space to build up anew. And like we always have to be on this like yin and yang flow. Like, I have to break down my muscles in order to stay strong. I have to go to sleep in order to have a good day the next day. Expansion and contraction. And that's so beautiful. And when you kind of break it down to like what's going on with the food, you look at the insulin and like these growth factors that we talked about, catabolic side and anabolic, and you could look at the same thing as catabolic being in the fight or flight for an extended period, and then anabolic being in this rest or digest. We have to have both. And most of us are stuck in this catabolic side, this side where we're like chronically breaking down. So if you think about just like small amounts of sun exposure can actually help us to balance out our hormones, can help us to balance out this fight or flight response. And that's so beautiful because, the sun is free. I mean, besides Bill Gates trying to create like, they're trying to do this thing where they secrete a bunch of chemicals and basically block the sun from the earth, which is just crazy. Like, if it's like, it's just all this stuff is like, they're trying to block us from our natural biological phase, like creating all this lab grown meat, creating all this appeal on the vegetables, all this glyphosate it divorces us from our natural state of our biology. And then we get forced into thinking that we can only supplement and take vitamins in order to be healthy. It's like Mama Nature going into the sunlight, eating real food, red meat, things like that, animal protein, getting good sleep, and meditating. Like, meditating is like one of the best supplements that we have. Like, all of these supplements, the most powerful things that we could do for ourselves, they're absolutely free. Even resistance training, like, you don't have to go to the gym. I love going to the gym. I love using the machines and just the things there. But we don't have to even have a gym. Like, we can do push-ups and squats, and we can resistance train without being in that environment. So like, everything that we need is free and available to us. And I think that's also an empowering thing to realize. What I was thinking about yesterday, because I followed this biochemist, and he's got out of the biochemical job that he was in. I think he really just is like more out in nature now. And he said the biggest thing that he had to unlearn was that vitamins aren't real, is that every vitamin is created in a lab. It's created within a single place and form, and we only have like suggestive studies that say that work, but we also have suggestive studies that say the placebo effects works. So you give a sugar pill to something, and then like people end up having a better outcome. So he was talking about like, nothing ever in Mama Nature, nothing ever comes in single form. Like, you go out into the sunlight, and it's like, that's different from being in front of an infrared light panel, right? Because infrared light panel is essentially a supplement of sunlight. When I go into the sunlight, I'm getting full spectrum of light. All these spectrums is telling and communicating with my DNA, with my body, different things. And it's like, it's overwhelmingly complicated when you think about it, but nothing ever comes in single form. It's the same thing. I go take one vitamin, like let's say I take a zinc vitamin, right? Or I can eat red meat and I can get zinc, I can get selenium, I can get everything, all the things in the proper ratio and quantity that it's actually used for. So when you start studying the biochemistry, it's complex. Like, I'm supplementing magnesium, but why am I supplementing magnesium? I'm supplementing magnesium is used as a cofactor in almost like 500 reactions. What is it cofactoring for? B vitamin complexes, all these other things, all these other complexes that are built by amino acids, enzymes, collagen, peptides, hormones, neurotransmitters. If I just reduce it down and create simplicity in my life, I see that I just could eat real food. That's like Mama Nature's best supplements. It's the most affordable way to get every nutrient, mineral, vitamin that you need. I could go in the sunlight. That way I can help my body break down all these chemical pathways, produce vitamin D, all these other things. And then I can work out and I can move my body and I can meditate, because like Joe Dispenza's work is, he's been one of the best people to, he studies people who are meditating, like what happens in their body when they meditate. Our immune levels, our immune system picks up, like, it's incredible. Again, going back to the placebo effect, like our body and, sitting still with ourselves, like, that's like the communion of the physical and the spirit. When you're sitting still with your breath and just focusing on relaxing everything in your body and just getting into the parasympathetic state, even though everything might seem stressful in life, like everything seems like it might not work out and something might go wrong. It's like, I can sit with my body and just for a moment just relax and just feel what it would feel like for everything to work out like perfectly fine, for me to be perfectly still and relaxed and healthy. You're practicing sitting in that parasympathetic, that rest or digest state, allowing the body to repair and restore. It's so beautiful, and it's also hard to do when we're always distracted outside of ourselves. There's always, pick up your phone and scroll. Like, I'm oftentimes I'm like, damn, I hate my phone, because it sucks my attention in a lot of the time. And I'll be getting on it to like do something like productive, and then boom, I end up on Instagram and I'm scrolling. I'm like, how did this happen? Like, how did I lose 30 minutes or an hour of my time? And I try to engage with things that help me learn and stuff, but sometimes it's just like, it's endlessly scrolling. And it takes me away from my breathing pattern and how I'm feeling my body, and I get so up in my head. I'm sure a lot of you guys can also relate to that, is that when you get on your phone, you get lost. Like, your attention literally goes into the phone. It goes away from the body, and it's such a different feeling when you actually like put your attention like on your heart space in your body and you relax like your hip region and everything. It's such a different feeling. It's like, it's amazing how we can like shift our attention like that. And that's also why I like weight training too, specifically, is because weight training, resistance training, but I specifically like the weights, is because it's like practicing putting attention like directly into a certain muscle group at that time. So like whenever I'm not training weights, it also helps me to practice doing that, when I'm just like sitting and meditating. So I think that's so beautiful. But where did I start this with? The naked baby is so beautiful and so like, so connected with nature. We're all connected with nature when we're little. We always want to run naked and be free and be in the sunlight, be barefoot. And you watch any baby and it's like, how do we grow up? We grow up in society and our families, they start putting these masks on, like we have to behave, you got to eat with a fork, you can't eat with your hands, you can't be a little savage, you got to behave a certain way in order to be loved. And then we forget, we become so disconnected with our natural inner child, our natural inner state, our natural like inner sense of freedom. Like, would I ever run out my house or run away from my mom now, butt naked down the sidewalk and go stand in the sunlight? No. Like, I might do that in my backyard, but I'm not gonna do that, because there's people that might see me, but like that baby couldn't give two flips about it. Like, man, he was so cute, and it just reminded me of like the innocence of the child. And that's why I love watching babies. I love looking at plants and stuff too. So like they're just chilling, they're just chilling, and they don't care what other people think. That flower is the most beautiful flower. It might have half of its petals missing, but it is the most beautiful flower, and it will stand up straight and be in the sun, and it just doesn't care. I don't know, it's hard not to care sometimes, especially with social media, but it's a good practice. It's a good postural practice. That's the other thing I've been working on. Posture muscles. Posture definitely has to be built. And like it takes a lot of energy to have good posture, because like those muscles in our back, like there's so many muscles, and it takes so much energy. Like the basal metabolic rate, like for you to have good posture, it takes so much. All these beautiful muscles. And a lot of us just don't have the nutrients that we need to stand up straight and just to feel good and patient. And like I always talk about the mitochondria, because they're the powerhouse of the cell. And something that they need to function, we were talking about cofactors and stuff like that, magnesium, they need B vitamins. One of the biggest things, like B1, for instance, there's this ER doctor that I found on Instagram, and he was talking about there's a disease called beriberi disease. And basically it's like a disturbance in the respiratory rate, or disturbance in respiratory function, it's mitochondria. But he said that there's a bunch of people coming into the ER right now, and he's like sounding the alarm all the time, but they have B1 deficiencies. And it's like, where do we get these vitamins from? Do we get it from a pill? Does it come from a powder? No, it comes from our food. If you eat animal-based proteins, you're going to get the full profile of everything. So I just think it's also interesting that a lot of people are showing up in the ER with that, and I think it more so also has to do with being in that more catabolic state. We're just using energy so fast that it's hard to even balance the little bit of nutrition that we're getting, and they're probably under, don't have enough nutrients to begin with, and then we're in the stress response, and then, but it's crazy that, a lot of people are ending up in the ER with this B1 deficiency, so, you look up and you go look up and you're like, B1 biochemistry and thiamine, and you start to look up, what is this used for? And then B1 mitochondrial function, you start to see like it's critical. The B vitamins, they are running the powerhouse of the cell, and fats important for essential fatty acids, like just as important. So that's why I always swing towards the animal-based proteins, because they not only have the full profile of amino acids that we need, but they also have the fatty acids, which are just as important. They have like rapid starvation, which we can die if we're only eating lean protein. So we must have fat. That's why, again, Mama Nature, she usually puts everything that we need in full form. Like an egg has the egg yolk, and it's full of fat and vitamins and minerals. Anyway, I'm going to leave this here. I hope this was helpful for you in some way. I hope you get in the gym. Hope you sit down with yourself and meditate. Stillness is a declaration of trust. And I hope you continue to build that with yourself. As always, I have my email on my channel if you ever want to reach out and say anything. My goal is not perfection. I just am here to share my theories and my passion. And this getting back towards nature, it is like the process of remembering. And if dementia was on the opposite side of forgetfulness of who we are and our need for connection, then I'm trying to find the other end of the spectrum, which is like heavy investment into the mitochondria, into the cerebellum, into the hippocampus, into remembering that we are creatures and products of the earth. We are beautiful, complex, and we don't see ourselves accurately when we look in the mirror. We see just a body, and we forget that we are trillions and trillions of cells with trillions and trillions of other things that are going on inside of these cells. And our energy requirements are so dense. So make sure that you are remembering that when you're considering your nutritional needs. We always tend to need a little bit more than we think. Muscle and mitochondria, they'll protect us from stress and states of dis-ease. And Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, she's also a great one to look up to, muscle-centric therapies. So anyway, I'm going to leave this here. I love you so much. I wish you the best of luck, and I'll catch you later.